Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this panel discussion. At the outset, let me introduce our three wonderful panelists. To my left is Sadanand Date, 1990 batch, Maharashtra cadre, presently Police Commissioner Meera Bhayadar. Earlier, Sadanand worked in CBI, CRPF, and Ministry of Justice. He is a former Fulbright scholar, was injured in the 26/11 attack. He has a PhD degree in law from Pune University, and he is an officer of very high reputation as a police leader. To my right, he is Anuj Kadyan. He is a managing partner in consultancy firm McKinsey. He heads their Delhi establishment, went to NIT Trichy, Kellogg's Business School, worked abroad for 12 years. Now he's back in India, and of course, you know one or two. Yeah.
Hello.
I can shout, yeah. Yeah. And of course, he knows a thing or two about advising organizations that are seeking change. To our extreme left, our good friend from the IPS, 1999 batch, Deepika Suri from the Madhya Pradesh cadre, presently IG Zone, Narmadapuram. She worked in the CBI, in the Cabinet Secretariat, and she's a former TCS British Chevening cyber security scholar. So ladies and gentlemen, these are your distinguished panelists. Give them a generous welcome with an applause. Before turning to the panelists, I have the job of explaining why we need to go through this process and why Indian Police Foundation has decided to enter into advocacy with state and central police organizations to go through a process of setting a vision. No vision will be set today. We are only discussing whether we need a vision, and if at all we need a vision, how do we go about it? As one said on quote, vision without action is a dream. Action without a vision is a pass of time. Vision and action changes the world. You need vision and action both. The question is, have we missed on vision though we have been acting? It's a question for us to think over. How is that? For 200 years we have done so many things, and the allegations against the Indian police remain unchanged. If you see writings about the Indian police in 1820s, as well documented in the Madras Police Commission report, it says precisely the same thing. Inability or unwillingness to collect evidence under the law, partisan behavior, use of coercive method, torture, lack of professionalism, lack of integrity. This is what the Madras Police Commission said. And so to get rid of that, you unveiled with band Baja the new police system in 1861, the new professional police force. And John Beams writes after 3 years that the Daroga suddenly understood that he can function under old ways in the new system. So nothing changed. 1902, fast forward, Police Commission said that yes, we had a professional police force. We expected these things to change, but nothing has changed. Then came 1947 independence, and by the time you reach 1977-79, the NPC said no, things have not changed. We now need to do ABC. Not that ABC have not been done, but things are not changing. And of course, 2006, you had the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court. Is it that we are doing many things but lack a vision? Now, since it's getting little abstract, let me come to a concrete example. Let's take another police force which has worked with a vision. And I have a little bit of an exposure with the British police, spent some time seeing them. And they have a clear philosophy. And that philosophy is they provide policing with consent. So they say it's part of a social contract. Society in trust has given me certain powers. I must exercise these powers in trust, and so long as I have the consent of society, I have legitimacy and I will provide policing. As soon as you tell this to an Indian police officer, he will start saying two things. One is that they have higher resources. Not true. No police force in this world has too many resources. Resources are always limited. Second is you would say, no, they do not have these challenges that we face. So I thought I'll list out 3 challenges that they have faced in recent times. The first was in 1999, the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, which accused the London Metropolitan Police Scotland Yard of institutionalized racism. All police leaders were shaken. What do? We thought these police, the public is with us. Now there is a significant section of people who think that we are grossly partitioned. We are a police force for the white majority. What do? And their model of policing with consent was challenged. Second example, July 7 bombing, British soil, British citizens, suicide bombing. They had dealt with IRA. Now they are dealing with grandfather of IRA, suicide bombing. Their own citizens committing suicide bombing on metro, on London Underground. That time, I thought that these guys will now change. Their laid-back attitude, straight-jacketed approach has to change. They have to get unorthodox. They have to get far more aggressive with arrest, search, seizure. There will be allegations of false accusations, implications. Increasing use of armed police, and things will get controversial. Those days I was conducting some training program as a PhD student for the Association of Chief Police Officers, Terrorism and Related Affairs Committee. I was training police officers, specialist police officers who would interrogate, as they call interview, terror suspects. You'll be surprised what was their biggest challenge. You just can't guess what was bothering them most. What was bothering them? That the Terrorism Act said you can interview a suspect without the presence of a solicitor. That was bothering them. They said since 1984, we don't talk to a suspect unless his lawyer is present. Because we want community support. We want consent. We don't want to be questioned. We want a solicitor to be present so that we take a voluntary statement and nobody questions us. And behold, they got over that phase of terrorism with intelligence, with investigation, not by violating their core philosophy. That core philosophy was again challenged in 2011 when they had 5 days of riot in London. Massive looting and, arson. So I used to tell some of them, now you need to import long lathis from Delhi, if not one armed battalion, to beat up these guys. But they did not change their model of use of force. They still remain unarmed because that is their core philosophy. Now, what happens when you do not have a philosophy? And more so, that philosophy in UK is shared by society, by the political class, by the media, by the civil society, by everybody. Suppose you do not have a philosophy and you keep doing. 2 things can happen. First thing is, everything that you do will be contested. Questioned by victim, questioned by accused, questioned within the police, serving officer, retired officers, people coming on television saying various things. This police should have done, that should not have happened. It goes on. And then you have the political class, police will become part of political football. Then, as David Welly wrote, judiciary will go to endless lengths to find acts of impropriety by the police. So this will continue. This is the first problem that you face. The second problem is, when you initiate a reform, core recommendations of NPC, New Police Act, Police Establishment Board, appointment of police chief, police complaints authority, everything will be subverted. And you will not reach your destination. You do not have a philosophy. That's why I read this line, action without vision just passes the time. And we have past time. There is no vision. You will take a lot of short journeys in this direction, that direction, but not reach any destination. What is your destination? What have you achieved? So the idea was that the IPF should start an advocacy and create a shared vision so that people generally understand this is the direction in which we should go. This kind of recrimination and obduracy must end so that we make some headway relating to a new police system. So that's the context in which we have embarked on this new advocacy, a new mission. I would not further speak about it. It was my job to only set the context, and we have three wonderful panelists who would now be answering questions from my side. Hopefully the microphones work and this can continue to be a panel discussion and not a lecture. Thank you so much. Hopefully this works now. To begin with, can we have an opening statement from the three panelists? To begin with, Sadanand, a minute for you and kind of an opening statement. Why do you think we need a change in our strategy?
Thank you, Sudhanshu. I think we have significant shortcomings, and the present state of affairs is not acceptable even to police officers. Of course, there is a clamor for change from all sections of society. So I think our negative police image, you spoke about it, many have spoken about it, which comes out of declining professionalism and issues with police leaders and leadership styles and scandals that are coming out, and which probably is also driven by what I call over-mandating of the police force with underfunding of police force. We have ever-expanding agenda thrown at police for enforcement with not adequate resources. So we have these significant shortcomings, but at the same time, I would like to emphasize the good things that are happening. Recently, I conducted recruitment in a small commissionerate where I head of 82 constables. And I was surprised, I have 6 graduate engineers coming as constables. And out of them, one is MTech. There are MBAs, there are 6 pure science graduates. So the kind of talent, which is probably explained by the rising education levels, the demographic change that is happening, which is creating a lot of competition to get into government, get into police job, and therefore we are having this great opportunity at the bottom of the pyramid and across the pyramid. We are having wonderful people coming in the department. That is one. Second thing I think that is happening
we can come back to you, Sadanand, for a longer chat.
Just give me a half minute. So the second thing is the economy is growing, and we have tremendous unfulfilled talent of potential of IT. I think all this creates a need for change and a hope for change.
Thank you. Now, your turn.
Hopefully the mic is working. First of all, good evening, everyone. And I would like to start by saying, can you hear me? Yes, this is working. Yeah, so first I would like to start by saying thank you for your service. And, you know, I don't have the full appreciation of the complexity and the scale in which you operate. We come mostly from the private sector, but I think I would say 2 things. One, it's heartening to see that you are starting this journey with shared vision versus just vision. Because if the vision is not shared, that's just a wrong starting point. But most importantly, I want to share, having gone through multiple transformations as an organization, we have done a lot of research on this topic. 70% of the transformations fail. And they fail largely because of culture, managerial, and people-related aspects. And at the heart of that is shared vision, conviction in the organization that they can actually achieve that vision, and role modeling and behavior change all the way from top team to the front line. So I think it's great to see that you are embarking on this journey with a focus on shared vision. And you're not alone in realizing the challenges that you talked about, that it's hard to actually transform.
Now, opening remarks from Deepika.
So just to emphasize why I think there is an urgency for a vision, I think these are the best of the times as far as our economy is concerned. We're talking about smart city. We're talking about a lot of things that are happening in the ecosystem. And in addition to that, we have people who have a voice and a perspective about how policing has to be done. When we talk about revision, we're not talking about police reforms for the police, of the police, and by the police. We're talking about a shared vision. Now, only yesterday there was a certain case where we were told to look into a certain case. उस case में ये था कि लड़की के मतलब 354 का केस था, लड़की के साथ she was going to school and a boy slapped her and she stopped going to school. Now we were asked to look into the case after a case had been registered and the person had been served notice, because now the more important issue was that she's not going to school. So when now police is being mandated to look into the harm that is being caused by crime, now we have something like earlier if we only investigated accidents. Now we have the IRAD data, which tells us first identify the hotspots. You have some interventions. What are the engineering aspects you will get the other stakeholders involved in? So and there is a lot of change that is happening within the organization. Like Dr. Date definitely mentioned about a lot of our constabulary that is now very well educated. Similarly, I will say that around 10.3% of our people are now women. So there is a lot of change. The crime is changing, but sometimes it feels very like online fraud is a big thing. So, but what is also happening is that we come like in my particular zone, I concentrate a lot on property crimes, and I realize that we're reaching back to the same denotified communities time and again. We have the same kind of faulty and impossible report card, which is in terms of crime statistics. So now when we have, and now like we have now when we are sitting in this hall, we have a lot of people from the law university, we have researchers. So this is the time when it is really opportune to actually get the voices of everybody in and to have a large mandated voice so that we have a very broad-based discussion.
Okay, so generally, before we go on to shared vision, now Anuj, you have been helping out organizations develop a vision. So how does this system typically work? Someone comes to you and says, our organization wants change. How do you advise and how do you go about it?
Yeah. So I would say, the starting point is always, a context that there is a need for something transformational. That's the case for the change that has to be clear before you even start on the journey, right? So the process of how you go about, I'll talk about that, but the very first starting point has to be a very clear alignment that there is need for change and we do want to drive that change. The process typically involves, I would say, 4 main kind of phases of that, right? The first is preparation. The second is initiating or finalizing exactly what the change you are going after. How do you activate that change and how do you sustain that change? And what I mean by that, in the preparation phase, you are really focused on hearing from everyone, how you will run that process, how you will engage all the right stakeholders to co-create it. The ideation phase is very focused on actually then involving those stakeholders to come forward with their ideas on what that vision and action plan needs to be. And then you have to activate it. And what I mean by that is you have to really cascade it down into the organization so that the person at the front line also feels full conviction to that vision and understands that vision and knows how to act and behave. And then finally, to sustain it, you have to measure it, you have to adjust. So that's a core part of ensuring that you are on track.
Okay, I mean, we have a large number of people in the front line. We have police station level officers, we have people right on the street. So no matter what ideology or value we preach, unless that is followed or accepted by people at the grassroots, not really much can change. So what do organizations with large blue-collar workforce with frontline, how do they handle this?
Yeah, when we think of driving culture change at scale, especially in the frontline, I would say there are a few core components to it. The first is just role modeling from the top. They have to see that behavior demonstrated throughout the organization day in and day out. The second is you have to build real conviction in the front line that this vision is actually achievable. So that conviction and understanding of what you are asking them to actually do has to be very, very clear. Third, there has to be rewards and other kind of structural mechanisms in place to reinforce the behavior that you need. And finally, the fourth I would say is you have to invest in talent and skills and capability building. Otherwise, it would just not happen. But underlying all this is how do you really ensure that they understand what you are asking them to do, and it has to be something inspiring that they are going to make an extra effort to achieve that. If I'm not inspired and I don't understand what you're asking me to do, no amount of communication, etc., will motivate me to go that extra mile to do things differently.
Okay, that is going to be very tough. Persuading our SHO to change, persuading our constable, beat constable to change. Yes, we can have these value statements, some of which written in Sanskrit with words like Seva, Suraksha, all that, but translating it is quite difficult. You said that 70% of the organizations that seek change actually fail.
Yeah.
Why?
So we studied almost 2,000 large transformations, and almost 70% of them fail, and majority of the reasons were all around the top team is always aligned and wants to do the change, but it's the middle that comes in the way often, and that is where the energy just kind of dissipates. So it's all people and managerial related kind of challenges. So it's all about, yes, you know what you want to do, how you want to do it, but how do you then build that energy and conviction in the organization to actually go get that done, right? So we can build a playbook for how to do something, but that no amount of playbook or external support or motivation can compensate for the scale that you have in the organization that needs to act out of its own energy.
Yes, I mean, it makes sense, but just that many of us would be cynical, how do you transfer? In our case, the middle level would be superintendent of police, the DIGs, the DSPs, that will be the middle level. But you are saying that is the segment that must be taken on board if we are to, drive a culture change.
Just
right?
one last comment on this, right? So people don't resist change, they resist being changed, right? And also, I would add often, when you go through this journey, the discussion becomes how do we change them, right? I think as you go through this exercise, everyone has to focus equally on what am I going to do differently, how am I going to change? And that's the role modeling part, and then that cascades.
This is quite internal. Okay, that part I understand. What about the external factors? We are actually, after all, a government department. So there is an elected government, and there are many other stakeholders. How do you align them to the values that you identify that should drive change in your organization?
Yeah. And this is where I think, your scale and complexity is unlike, any organization I have worked with, so I understand that. But I think this is why I said you're starting on the right foot by saying it's about shared vision that you want to co-create with all the stakeholders. And it might be that once you go through that exercise, the vision that you create is shared but might not be as aspirational as you want in the very first phase. But I would say if it's shared and we can take kind of steps towards that, that'll help you build momentum, right? So it can be a phased journey of how you kind of go about this.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Anuj. Now Sadanand, the police officer's perspective. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Why is that we have been struggling for the last 200 years, not really making progress? So what is the reason?
So, see, the conventional answer is we have this colonial top-down hierarchical structure where orders flow from top to bottom. But let me build on what Anuj said. The whole concept of modernity or democratic values means that the leader, in our case the constable and the DG, as human beings are essentially of the same value. So if we not only give dignity, but seek their opinion, information, and inputs. Probably we can change. So what you are saying is why we have not been doing it? Probably because our structure and top-down approach, and what we can do instead is this a different approach to leadership, where we value our colleagues at across the levels.
All that, again, sticking to the internal challenges, what about short-term expediency and personal career goals can get, which can get the better of values defined or a philosophy defined?
No, but that's exactly what Anuj has been saying, and we have very powerful external stakeholders, and in control internal stakeholders, the leadership of the force, and then the rest of the force. And here we are discussing as the initiators of the change. I think we have to have more collegiality about it, and we have to come together, without which I don't think we can even think or conceptualize the change. So definitely the leadership has to change first.
Okay, so both of you agree that it has to be a shared vision. We have to take everybody on board, and for which we have to go through a kind of a consultative process. Now comes the crucial question, the elephant in the room. What do we do about political leaders? They have exercised police, the control over the police. How do you go to them, or what do you tell them?
So let me go back to our freedom struggle. And Gandhiji was fighting a colonial power, and he had essentially two strategies. One, to galvanize the country. So he took up issues so that country becomes worthy of the freedom. That is, he worked on issue of untouchables, he worked on issue of women. I don't want to get into history, but all of us know that he emphasized that country should be worthy of the freedom, and then he appealed to the essential goodness, and there was no phoneism in him. Like, I don't think if we read Gandhiji, that it was a tactics. It was his essential core value that he believed that the rulers have essence of goodness in them, and he was constantly appealing to them. So your own very favorite phrase, persuasive communication. Of course, all politicians ultimately want good for their own tenures, for their own party, for their own governments. How we show them that we are worthy of the autonomy and we can deliver on your legitimate agenda. I think we have to create that trust and confidence in their minds.
Except for Kerala, where the then Chief Minister and the leader of opposition came together to embark on a police reform agenda. It's actually very difficult to bring different political parties and voices together.
But let me correct you. See the Andhra example. In the very fierce fight against Maoists, after a certain incident, police and political leadership were able to generate consensus on the primacy of fight against Maoists. And you have success of Andhra as a model. You see Tripura, you see Punjab, there have been examples. It's not that it has not happened. It has happened, but it has unfortunately happened under crisis situations. We are now thinking of using it as a template for making it happen in essentially unconceived vision and unconceived goals. But I think it can be done. It has happened in our own very country.
Okay. Now, one more question before I let you wait for a while and I turn back. The way police is seen, it is seen as an embodiment of power. But essentially it's a resource that society has created for public safety. How do you change this whole paradigm from being seen as a tool of power to a resource for society? How do you change? Because if this change does not happen, then no one will give up control over the police.
Okay, so Sudhanshu, let me tell you how this change has actually happened in the last couple of years. UP Dial 112 project. I have implemented it in my commissionerate. It's a new commissionerate. Now, essentially, going to Thana and seeking service from police has always been nightmare for citizens. But you have a smartphone or any phone, you call 112, and there is a measured response, how much response time is there, whether the complainant is satisfied or not. And UP police across such a big state, in a very short time with technology and mission mode implementation, has brought a very successful project. In my own commissionerate, when we started, our response time was more than 1 hour. Yesterday's response time was 4 minutes, 46 seconds. I think it's not that it is not, actually it is happening. How we built on these small successes where we are delivering to people what they want with meager resources that we have. I think we have to find out more and more such measurable services that take passport verifications. All of us know character verifications. All of us know it used to take months. Now, passport verification application in my commissionerate, if it doesn't get cleared in 7 days, a report pops up. It's happening across the country. So I think the technology is a very good intervention. It can really help us.
I agree with you on that, except that some of these work that we are doing, they don't get published. They're not publicized at all. So passport verification in 2.5 minutes, or complete the behavior change that the police has gone through in many states, they don't get publicized. What get publicized is one odd act of misbehavior or error, and that is causing a lot of problems. Deepika, now, as soon as you started in your opening remarks, you gave a bit of a feminist perspective. So I would ask you that question. I mean, there is a lot of demand that do something about women's issues, do something about human trafficking, and people would like police resources to be sequestered, broken into parts, because every segment of society has various demands, expectations, and you have limited resources. How do you create a narrative where everyone is willing to say that, all right, I need safety, but everyone else needs safety, not merely women, also senior citizens, also the child who is getting trafficked. How do we create that kind of a perception, a joint narrative?
I would rather say that the fact that people have expectation of us, there are aspirations, whether it be animal rights or children rights or women rights, it's a good thing. So yes, it does cause a strain on our limited resources. It does lead to the urgent becoming the one that we are actually concentrating on. There is a stretch of that resources and the wind of the day becomes the important agenda. So definitely there are issues with that, but I think what we need to do is to understand that yes, these are realistic aspirations, to do a social audit of the kind of, because what I feel is that there is a need for that cerebral exercise. That is why this stakeholding, that is why this vision. So we don't say that people, since they have these aspirations, they shouldn't have these aspirations. They have it, we kind of map it out, we see how to do it. If we had this thing that women required special issues, we have a women help desk running. Yes, it does mean that very few women are doing a lot of work because they're right on the desk, they're supposed to be there for the medical, they're supposed to take that statement. So one demand we definitely make is increase the number of women who are there in the force. It's only 10.3% and they're virtually doing 50% of the job. That's what I feel. And the other thing is that we should have SOPs in place that identify which are the core functions, which are the non-core functions. If the children have demand, definitely we have an entire Juvenile Justice Act that is there which identifies who are the children who are in need of care and protection, who are the children who are in conflict of law. You have a special juvenile police unit. Definitely there is a strain in resources, definitely there is a problem that is there, but the solution is to look for SOPs, the solution is to ask for more resources, the solution is to identify core, non-core. If earlier on the issue was that we were not able to have a proper response time, like Dr. Date said, now we have 112, we have dial 100. So we have systems in place to take care of that. Instead of saying that these aspirations are wrong, like a lot of people who come to the police station are also, maybe I also have this issue, that a lot of people who sometimes come to my office I'll feel that they have an issue and they're going ad nauseum talking about it because they have some mental issue. Now I don't know what to do about them. So there are all kind of people who are coming. So instead of saying that they are having, delegitimizing their approach to the police, we are the first responders. People will come to us, but we need to ask the entire system how to help us cater to all these needs.
Okay, so the need is to build partnership
Yes.
with different communities and groups. But then some of these groups, civil society groups, media, they have their own core beliefs. So negotiating with them, talking it out with them, explaining our resource constraint, and arriving at a kind of shared vision, because we need them to on board. We have to explain to them that we are not opposite parties, but we are on the same side. How do you go about it? Consultation process.
The consultation process, I guess it's like we have, obviously it involves a lot of stakeholders. It will involve talking to, like if we have to increase the manpower, if we have to increase the resources that are there. So that requires our leadership also to take up these issues with the systems that be. And this also requires that we talk to a lot of other people. Like even now we have involvement of NGOs in our Women Help Desk. We have involvement of NGOs in the Special Juvenile Police Unit. If we are talking about the fact that we are supposed to take care of road accidents, we have the engineering department there. So we have to involve a lot of people. Yes, there will be intermediate problems, but one has also to think out of the box. Like dial 100 is a very, or dial 112 is a very big example where you almost have to think of a parallel system coming up. So maybe it's not, I'll not be able to come up with solutions right here on, but I guess we need to think about it.
Anyone in the audience, we would like you to comment on why we need a shared vision and is it going to help? Anyone? Yes, sir? Yes. Can you give a microphone? Professor Nishit Sahai from Georgetown University.
No, hello, I'm Nishit Sahai. I'm from George Mason University and I'm one of the IPF. I'm the General Council member of Indian Police Foundation. I would like to, we have just started getting the ripples. We just throw the stone, now the ripple started. We have just created that. I would like to say something about Anuj, and you talked about 70% of this self-consultancy fails. This is my personal opinion. I have global exposure. I would like to say, why it fails, कि लोग सोचते हैं कि मेरे अंगने में तुम्हारा क्या काम है. So if you have somebody from outside, then and the Government of India is one of the world's largest organization. So to manage the activities that the Government of India does, it's a very tedious things. So when you are saying that 70% fails, well, why it fails? So मेरे अंगने में तुम्हारा क्या काम है? So when you are talking about policing, when we are always thinking about the top down, but the majority, like it is a pyramid, so down, so you have to listen to them, you have to in tune with them. Unfortunately, there is a mismatch in there. This is what it is. Rest of all, you people, we are all in a very right direction. India has changed under Mr. Modi. Now he is a one-man figure. Some people like, many people don't like it. It's okay. But now, Government of India doesn't need a consultant from outside because we have got a strong leader here itself. So there is a hope, and we are going in the right direction.
Anuj, you want to comment on that?
No, I don't think we are saying things differently, right? In terms of really creating a shared vision that is fully, the front line is fully, believes in, right? Otherwise, the vision will not cascade and it will not get acted on.
Yeah.
Right? So it absolutely, and the way you create is by listening, by co-creating and engaging them in the process of creating the vision. Yes, it is the responsibility of the leadership to set a very aspirational goal, but they shouldn't do it in a vacuum. They should absolutely do it. And this is what I talked about: prepare, ideate, activate, and sustain. And in all those 4 phases, you absolutely have to involve the front line and all the stakeholders.
Yeah, Sadanand, I'll ask you this question. I'll come to you. When you enter into consultation with members of the public, many of them say things which are not in accordance with rule of law. Like they'll say please enter into false encounter and eliminate everybody. They'll say, bring this accused to India Gate and hang him. So there are lots and lots of views that will emerge, because you are not merely consulting. Can you take those things on board? And then when you want to impose a post-enlightenment modern view on people who have their own prejudices, how do you go about it?
So, Anuj said something very important. We have to listen to them. Any one of us who has dealt with riots and has held peace committee meetings after riots knows that 50% of the things are sorted out by letting people speak out. So I think listening to them is important, and it has to be two-way process. So many times it has so happened, Molla committees is a wonderful model for this kind of interaction. We tell them our wish list. Let me tell you how people can be generous and how it can help. We are talking of technology. Government is coming with CCTV cameras as one important public security measure. Area where I work had no CCTV cameras funded by government. I had a wonderful colleague. He said, sir, why don't we ask people to donate CCTV cameras to us? Societies have CCTVs, just ask one of the cameras to be faced outside. So we started one camera for your city. Government had invested hundreds of crores for 5,000 CCTV cameras for Mumbai city. We have 5,700 CCTV cameras in last 1 year, donated by people and commercial establishments. I think if we go with readiness to listen and project our own problems, and of course there would be situations, all of us have faced it, now with the new further restrictions on arrest. First thing that people want, efficacy of police is arrest, and we are not supposed to arrest now. I think, but if we engage people, they do listen and they do share.
Can we have Mr. Ramphal Singh? Yeah, yes, sir. Just your views, sir. Nothing else.
Good evening to all of you. I'm Ramphal Pawar, former director, NCRB, Government of India. The issues which were discussed here, which were being discussed, was about the public involvement, the involvement of all the stakeholders. Public is our biggest stakeholder. We are working for the public, and if they are with us, if you see, the criminals are hardly 1%, 99% people are the civilians, good, well-meaning people. So if we take them along, it's so easy to make change, sustain change, and get the changes accepted. Okay. I'd like to just quote one example which we conducted in West Bengal. It was called Sahayata, where we found that the public resources are being just extended or outstretched, and we don't have enough manpower, but the issues were large, and the minor issues which if you do not tackle in the bud, then they tend to take a bigger shape and then involve take away police resources. So how do you take care of these minor issues? So we formed, we started an experiment called Sahayata, where a thatched structure was created in each police station compound, and we involved citizens who were ready to spare about, let's say, an hour each on a particular day of the week. You make a roster in every police station where about 20 odd citizens are available, would come sit there every day. Some group will be available every day. It was well publicized, and whoever wants their service, would just come in, sit with them, and the police, will invite the opposite party through a letter stamped with the police station. The opposite party would also come. You just sit, chat, discuss, find a wire medium and a win-win solution for both the parties, and resolve the issues. The citizens were doing themselves. Only one police constable rank in civis was there just to take care that it is not, no law is violated. And the success was so high that lawyers came out in procession saying, if you start resolving all the issues, what will happen to our, our profession?
Sir,
it worked so well.
we are heading to the end.
Yeah. Just so if you take the public
Sir.
along, you can make change, you can sustain change, and you can bring out wonderful results.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just one sentence, sir. Sir.
Number one is that we have to create the vision first. I think we are getting into very small nitty-gritties, which is not the purpose of discussion of the day. So for vision setting, the IPF should go to the MHA. The MHA should direct all the DGPs and the CAPFs and all those to come out with their ideas of what should be the vision.
Okay, sir.
Now, dismantling of the VIP structure. Number two, creating a sterile environment for the entire public at large. That means not the VIP. We have to clear and make the surroundings.
Thank you, sir. That's more than what we can handle.
And third, last thing is follow a bottom-up approach.
Sir.
Make the beat people more accountable and trustworthy and working.
Shall I?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Just 1-2 sentence, please.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to.
There's a main
Yeah,
meeting.
I am Dr. Gupta from OP Jindal Global University. I have a former UP cadre background. See, the thing is, we need to look at like a corporate problem, we need to talk about learning and growth and improving the process and customer delight and then financial outcome also. In case some police station is doing exceptionally well, what are the incentives? The people who are there, do we teach them meditation, yoga, yog nidra? They are restless all the time. Do we talk about their restfulness? Are we really taking care of them? Or just like that, ki bhai constable hai, kaam kar raha hai. We are talking too much on the action, doing, but not on the being part. So the being part is very important. And I've
Thank
just,
you.
if
you.
you allow me 1 or 2 things.
No, please.
So we can just make people unstoppable. One Singham and one Dabang.
What we would request
Yeah.
is that you can send us a note to Mr. Ramchandran, and we would like to involve you in further consultation.
Yeah, I'm part of
Mr.
the
Tripathi wants
Bharati
to.
Gyan Parampara.
My former boss
Sure.
wants to speak, Mr. Tripathi, so I can't say no to him.
Just 1 minute. I will say that we need to focus attention on 2 things. Firstly, people's expectations from police. What are their expectations? We have to be very clear about it. Can have a survey also. And we may come across there many a times their expectations are situational. I will not elaborate on that. And second thing is people's knowledge about powers and limitations of police. Both the things are interrelated, so we have to interact with population and let them know that what are our powers and limitations.
Absolutely correct. Actually, when we sit down and start listing, there's a lot to be done. But we need to show some early successes. So suppose Sadanand, your chief minister, calls you and you asks you, tell me 3 things that I can do in the next 3 years. Just 1, 2, 3. Because I want some actions, something that can be done quickly, 2027, but 3 sentences, 3 wish list.
Okay, so let me have 2 simple and 1 difficult wish. See, I think we should have technology and funding for it. We should have autonomy within the resources given to us. Both these things are not present as of now. And third and most important thing, which is difficult, I understand, is to build political consensus on issues of policing. I'm sure 100% consensus is not possible. But there would be some areas of police where all political parties would uniformly support change in police. I think these 3 things can work out wonders.
Deepika.
Right, sir. So one would be to do away with statistical evaluation, because that is something that is really irksome. And the political leadership as well as the police leadership throughout the hierarchy should be very clear that this is not how we shall evaluate the police. This is one, financial empowerment of the Thana. And third would be transparency in transfer policy to begin with.
Okay. Now, to you, Anuj. We are living in a VUCA world. For those who may not understand VUCA, VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. Very rapid technology changes, climate change, you really don't know tomorrow. how do we set mid-term, long-term and all these prospects? So what do you tell organizations that you advise?
Yeah. And I would start by saying, every time you are in that kind of a phase, it feels like this is unique, but right now at least it feels like we're going to stay in this VUCA world for a long time, right? So I think it is here to stay. On this again, especially over the last 2-3 years, we've had kind of a lot of thinking and conversations with a lot of CEOs on how they are operating and thinking about this. And I would say there are two archetypes that are emerging. There are CEOs who are largely kind of playing a defense game to say, I need to play defense, hunker down, let the storm pass, and then we will kind of do something. And there is a second archetype of leaders who are saying that yes, we need to be cautious and play defense, but there is no time like today to actually play offense and make some breakout moves. In F1 car racing, they say it's very hard to overtake 15 drivers when the weather is perfect, but when it's rainy, that's when you can actually overtake 15 drivers who are ahead of you. So, this current environment requires leaders to be ambidextrous. You need to play both defense and offense. And in this world, I think what will help you is being really, really sharp on the insights and understanding what's happening. It doesn't mean you have to read everything. You have to kind of leverage the ecosystem around you to develop that deep understanding as a leader, because you will set the direction. The second is really making kind of clear decision and some bold decisions. And finally, executing with speed. And even the decision making, you might have to revisit because things will keep changing. But the answer cannot be just defense.
Okay, more or less we have come to the end of the time allotted to us. Online we were discussing, and I told the panelists that the US Army was in Afghanistan for 18 years. And every company commander kept sending reports that situation is improving. After 18 years, they realized nothing had improved. So every police officer I meet tells me case studies, what he did while in service and how things are improving. And after 200 years, you are back to square one. So we need to be very, very careful when we talk about the short-term achievements and the long-term perspective. So it's a very interesting conversation. It's a conversation which has just begun. It is going to be pretty complicated because society is complicated. There are different stakeholders. Each one will try to pull this agenda in different direction. But we have seen that unless we have a goal, we will undertake various journeys and reach nowhere. So I again thank Mr. Ramchandran and all the three panelists for this opportunity to take part in today's panel discussion. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best.